Here at the University of Findlay, the student population almost seems to be divided into two. One side being the full-time students who do not participate in any athletics, and the other being your full-time student athletes. To gain information on the two populations and their feelings about one another, we conducted polls, research, and interviews to better understand both sides.
I mean, I think, athletics is there's always going to be expense after expense. There's always going to be, athletics is kind of an arms race right now with, everybody wants the next best thing as far as facilities and nutrition and any support that athletes can get. So there's never going to be enough funding. I'm not totally surprised that students feel that way. That makes sense, especially if a good proportion of that pool that's being surveyed is student athletes. I'm sure they feel that sometimes that they're not being supported financially well enough. So I think those numbers check out.
I feel like all the sports team in general receive enough funding, like athletics in general receive enough, but it's split very wrong, because I feel like our football team gets majority of the funding and other teams get nothing. Because I know in the softball team or something like that, or baseball, they have to buy their own stuff sometimes. And I've never heard a football player have to say they have to buy their own anything unless they wanted something else.
I'm going to be a little biased, but I'm going to say we don't get enough funding because we don't have enough resources available to all the athletes on campus, as far as some simple things such as an athlete dining hall or a bigger weight room, just because we need those things, especially as athletes. They definitely need other nutrients compared to regular students that I don't think that just one dining hall gives them. So something funding towards that, maybe a little bit more funding towards that would help.
That makes sense. I mean, athletes are kind of put in the spotlight. I mean, your traditional student who's involved in, XYZ club probably are not getting the same level of exposure on social media or UFTV or just the general media as a whole, as student athletes are. Student athletes are generally put out into the spotlight. So that makes sense. I mean, clearly the general student body is doing things in the classroom and in clubs that deserve recognition. So you would like to see that equal out a little bit, but also appreciate that student athletes are receiving the recognition they deserve. So
I would say all in all, that's probably pretty true, just because to put it in a perspective, the school doesn't really help publicize much of anything anyway. Just because you post on Instagram or Twitter doesn't mean everybody owns those sites or sees that. You got to put stuff around campus and have people advertising stuff on campus. I know over here at the dining hall, they usually have that big poster board of what's going on.
Yeah.
If they were to do that for anything going on, you'd probably have more people recognized and more people that want to do things on campus because they're getting some sort of recognition, which can help them propel them into lives and careers and stuff, because you never know who's going to see them.
Right.
I feel like as just a student that goes here, I'm just a number, and athletes get more. They get more funding, they get more recognition. And they don't really, I feel like they don't really, not see me in general, but they don't really see us as students. We're just numbers for them. We're just dollar signs.
I think it's a integral part of the university as a whole. I think it's a big admissions driver. Get a lot of students into the university through that channel. It also creates a good sense of community on campus, for sure.
Very much so. I feel like the school's athletics in the last couple of years has gone up in popularity, and it has brought more attention and a bunch of other good things to this campus that go unnoticed.
I feel like, yes, it's important because we're still a university. I feel like that's the college thing. It's sports, and then sports bring in majority of the money for the school. So yes, we're getting money from it, but like it really just goes back to the athletes and then whatever the rest of the school does with it. But like I feel like it is important. I feel like it is a bad thing because it's trying to split apart the athletes versus the just people that go here, and it's like I feel like there's no point because like what's a NARP, a non-athletic regular person, and it's supposed to be like when I looked it up before, it's supposed to be like not like disrespectful towards like people that just go to school and they're supposed to be like like the nerdy type, the weird kid, and I don't feel like that's a good thing to just call people.
I don't see why you would take offense to it. I mean, it's not much more of a privilege to be a student athlete as it is just be a student. It's just some people grew up athletes, some people didn't care to be athletes. I mean, I wouldn't say being a NARP is a bad thing. It's just your choice of life. I don't see why you'd be offended by that or hurt by that.
It's interesting. I mean, that I feel checks out too. I mean, I was a student athlete. So I think the first time I ever heard that term was in college. I think the idea behind it is totally fine, and it's not intended to hurt anybody. But I think maybe something away like just kind of there's a snap to it.
Yeah.
That I could see the general student body, they hear that, and maybe with just like any other term. That like the way it's used and said could probably be in a negative context. So if somebody's saying, "Hey, look at that person," and they're putting a title on them, I can see how people would get upset about that. But I think the idea of that term is not intended to be offensive, but I get it for sure.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Thank you.